Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market. I'll give you my thoughts moving forward into the final day of the week tomorrow. And yeah, all that good stuff. If you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. But again, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market's open and trade. So definitely check that out. That link is of course down below in the description of the video. So we'd love to have you there. Click this first link right here. And you get taken to the page to join if you wish. Again, $3 a month gives you access to all my Tesla updates, broader market updates as well, different time frame analysis, options, flow, all that good stuff. For just $3 a month, that's all it is on my private YouTube membership section. Of course, $5 includes NVDA, $7 includes the whole package where you also get access to my tier 3 posts, which include posts and charts about stocks that are essentially not Tesla, not NVIDIA, and access to my private Discord. We have a tier 3 chat room there, and I do chart reviews every single Sunday with members. But jumping into it, Tesla closing the day down 1% on the day, closing at pretty much $447 per share. So what does this mean moving forward, right? The market, definitely kind of, some good news, some bad news in the market. We'll go over that as well. But I would argue a bit more good news than bad news overall. Now, what is Tesla doing? Well, I actually still think it's setting up something, of a nice bullish pattern. Now, the one thing that was a little surprising to me yesterday was the fact that initially with the way I had this kind of trend line drawn was something like this, right? And we did break above it, then we went back below it, now we're back above it. Again, when I see these kind of situations unfold, part of me was a little surprised that we broke out so early, so I was a little bit skeptical on that. But when I see, such situations unfold where the trend line just seems to not really matter, prices just going back and forth through it nonstop, that to me tells me that that was just clearly the incorrect way of looking at it. So I did make a slight adjustment to it. Overall, the perspective is still similar. It's just with adjustments, if that makes sense. So the way I look at it now on the 1 hour time frame is one of two things. I should start with the daily quickly first. The daily still to me looks like it's setting up some kind of bullish pennant, right? Something that looks along the lines of this. You'll see a lot of people start talking about it being a bullish pennant relatively soon, bullish flag, whatever. You'll start seeing this quite a bit moving forward and potentially over the weekend, right? So that's the first way I'll be looking at it. It is a bullish pennant. Now the 1 hour kind of zooms in on this, and there's two patterns I'm looking at. Now it doesn't really matter which one it is because they're both ultimately bullish patterns. One is a bullish pennant, which is essentially this trend line combined with this trend line here, forming that pennant, obviously, right? Pretty simple stuff, which is, so far so good. We're holding it, we're bouncing, and we're zigzagging, right? We could continue zigzagging and getting tighter before breaking out one way or the other. Now, again, just because it's a bullish pennant, it doesn't mean it has to play out in bullish fashion, but that is something that's worth mentioning. So far, so good, in my opinion. Did AVGO report earnings out? AVGO is reporting earnings, not yet. So yeah, that's the way I'll be looking at Tesla right now. That's kind of that bullish pennant. Now there is a chance that instead of it being in a bullish pennant, instead we're in sort of a rising triangle pattern. Which, if you've never seen a rising triangle pattern, it looks something like this. Where, pretty simply put, off of an uptrend, then you start consolidating, making higher lows equal highs, and then you eventually break out to the upside. Tesla does have a history of doing these patterns, actually. Excuse me. Oh, I just finished eating. Let me show you a pretty good example on the daily chart that Tesla printed one before. Right here, this is a pretty good looking rising triangle pattern, right? Kind of the same idea, right? Take a look, right? Pretty much making more or less equal highs this entire time, but you can see each time it's making these kind of higher lows, right? Higher low, higher low, higher low, equal high, equal high, equal high, and then it finally blasted past, right? Kind of the same thing as this right here, just on that sort of smaller time frame, right around here that you can see. So that's the second pattern I'm looking at right now. Which one we're developing, I'm not entirely sure. Whether it's the pennant, whether it's the rising triangle, I'm not sure. I'm not 100%, I'll be honest. But it doesn't ultimately matter because what ultimately matters is the fact that both patterns do not want this trend line lost because that invalidates both of them. And if this bottom trend line is lost, which at the moment is sitting at about, we'll say about 442, give or take a few dollars. We'll say 440 to 443, somewhere around there. This trend line being lost and this low right here being lost. These are the two things you do not want to see. As long as these do not happen, this bullish pattern, whether it's a pennant or a triangle, continues playing out. And eventually it should play out in bullish fashion. Obviously, if this is lost, well, these patterns begin getting nullified. They begin getting, invalidated, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And then that's when a move to the downside back to retesting closer to this, 430 pocket right here becomes the kind of more likelihood pathway, if you will. So that's what I'll be looking at moving forward, into the next few days. If this pattern continues playing out, don't forget, there's still a decent amount of room here, right? So this can easily take until next week, maybe even Wednesday or Tuesday, maybe even Thursday potentially. So this can still take some days to form, guys. Keep that in mind. We are forming, not necessarily a huge, pennant or rising triangle here, but it's not necessarily a small one either. It's an okay size. Obviously, these bigger patterns, once they play out, they have more explosive moves, but they also take longer to kind of form tighten up base, all that kind of stuff. So let's continue watching that moving forward. But that's probably the main and simplest way I'm looking at Tesla stock overall moving forward in the days to come. There's really not much more to say about that. I do like the fact that the 4-hour SMI, you can see now, is getting that nice cool off right back around the middle zone, which is great because that does open up more room to the upside for Tesla, which is exactly what you want to be seeing in my opinion. So all these factors are good as we continue consolidating here and as the SMI slowly kind of trends downwards as the stock starts setting up and continuing to set up one of these two potential bullish patterns. So everything still is looking pretty good. The daily is still holding, even the 9 exponential moving average now for a few days in a row. We can't even get down below that and hold and close below that, which continues to tell me that the bullish momentum still exists. But again, nothing is guaranteed, right? Nothing is perfect. So watch for this bottom trend line to potentially being lost. And if that actually starts happening, that's when we can start having potential problems arise for the stock. But we're not there yet. And as far as I'm aware, until we get there, there's no reason to think about that. If we start getting there, then we can start thinking about it. Then we can start taking those, measures, if you will. But obviously, I already told you, if it's lost, I do think I move back down to about 430-ish. Is pretty likely. So that's the way I'll be looking at Tesla stock moving forward. The weekly is looking pretty solid still. Nice making a little bit of a doji, but it's back to holding the 9 weekly EMA. We have the stochastic very nice in the sort of bullish territory up here, which is also great news. So overall, the stock is not looking too shabby. We just need to see continuation from the bulls and not really fumble the ball, if you will, which, there's a chance. Of course, there's always a chance. But as it stands right now, the bulls remain in control, in my opinion, until something says otherwise, which I'll let you know if I see that. Now, going over to the broader market, right? What did the broader market do today? We had a nice little oopsie doopsie this morning, right? Had a lot of actually pain overnight. If you looked at overnight trading, there was a lot of red overnight, right? But so far, so good. The market is making its push higher, and it's now back to retesting pretty much all-time highs. It's pretty much right at all-time highs in terms of SPY itself, which is good. Again, the one thing I don't want to see is a quick move up here, not really get too far above that, and then collapse back under. That's what I prefer not to see. That does start opening up bearish opportunities, I guess, if that makes sense. Again, the best example I can use that we had not that long ago is before we had this massive correction, kind of like what we had over here, right? You can absolutely make an argument that this is us right here, right now, right? Pretty much at all-time highs, right? And then we had that nice push up, held above it for a few days, and then we collapsed back under. This is what we want to avoid. If we see something like this, that could start, problems could start arising from that. But, that's not to say it's going to happen. It's just a kind of, what if scenario, right? Watch out for this potential situation to happen. Just so, again, if it does happen, especially if it happens quickly, hopefully you're not too caught offside by that. But overall, the market, in my opinion, still continues looking bullish. Q's looking a little bit weaker, but still looking pretty decent, right? We had that breakout yesterday, massive flush this morning, but we bounced right off of that 21 exponential moving average, as I told my members about this morning before I did have to unfortunately step out in the morning of the day. This is trying to find my QQQ post. I had a post for the Qs here for my members before I stepped out. There we go, this one here. Right, you also got that real move at the day, real move after the event after all. Oracle earnings not helping. QQQ now testing the 21 EMA here. Below we can see a quick drop to near 612, but as long as either of those two areas hold, the bulls remain in control, right? And this is pretty much as we were testing that 21 exponential moving average. So overall, we held it, we bounced off of it, and now we're back above this trend line, which is all good stuff. So the Q's looking weaker than SPY, but still has some decent bullish potential here. I do want to make sure that we continue holding this area right underneath where we pretty much, tested today, this morning. I want to make sure that that zone continues being support, and I ideally don't want to see a daily candle start closing below the 21 EMA. As long as we avoid those situations, I think the bulls continue remaining in pretty nice control overall. But like I said, if we start closing below, that starts to give us issues. And even further issues, in my opinion, is if the Qs, for whatever reason, decide to somehow get pretty much under about 610-ish and start closing daily candles below 610, that's when even further problems start to arise. But obviously, we're still a ways away from that. The bears will have a lot of work to do to make that happen, especially considering the candle today actually looks pretty overall solid. So that's the way I'll be looking at that moving forward. In terms of the options flow on Tesla stock, pretty mixed bag over here, right? 8.1 million overall bullish flow, but about 8 million bearish flow. So very mixed bag over here, right? We saw some nice bearish flow come in the morning and a little bit around noon. But then towards the end of the day, we saw 1.4 million 490 call for December 19th. I like to see that. But we also saw a 220K put come in for 250 for January 9th, which again, I think this is someone that usually just buys these sort of extremely out of the money, very aggressive. Usually this is actually a bit farther away. Usually they're weeklies. So this is a few weeks out, but it could be a massive hedge. You never really know, right? You don't know the full picture with options flow, which is why I don't usually take too much emphasis on it, personally speaking, because is it a hedge or is it someone just being outright bearish? Maybe they know something, maybe they don't. We don't know for sure. But it is worth mentioning that someone did take these two positions, one very bullish, one pretty bearish, actually. So let's see how that plays out moving forward. But all in all, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.